Welcome back. My name is Emmanuel Knafo. I'm a founder of DevOps Shield, and today I'm going to show you how to install the DevOps Shield solution from the Azure Marketplace and get started for free. So you can actually protect up to 10 resources for free. So let me show you all how to do that. All right. So there's a couple ways of doing it. You can either go directly into the portal and click on Marketplace, and you could search for DevOps-Shield. You'll certainly find it that way because that's the name of the app. There's other ways of doing it. You could search for some keywords like DevSecOps, and you'll see it in the DevSecOps products. Notice starts at free, so you can go ahead and click that, and that will take you to the DevOps Shield managed Azure application. So there's a description here, a couple of few videos, and some images as well. Descriptions of each of the plans, pricing as well that you could see. And actually, there's links for support as well. One of the best places to get support is actually on our GitHub, so you can click on that. And as you see, you get to the Azure Marketplace support. And this, feel free to post here. And here's where you're going to find the post install script, which is once you've installed it, the application on the marketplace, you'll want to run this script to make your life easy to create the app registration. So you do want to protect this application through an app registration and only allow, for example, people in your tenant or even with certain roles like the DevOps Shield owner or member role to have access in the to the application. So one way is directly to install it is directly going to the marketplace within the portal. The other way is almost that. Maybe start at the website. And if you click www.devopsshield.com, and if you click on quite a few of these links, say the Get Started for Free at the top of the page, then that will take you also to the Azure Marketplace. You could see the similar kind of information with the pictures and videos and so on, the plans and pricing. And all you need to do is get it now. And that's basically going to make sure that you pick your plan. So we want the pay-per-use for the freemium version, which starts at free, of course. And go ahead and click on continue. So that's essentially going to try to log you into the Azure Marketplace. The Azure portal, but bring you directly into the Azure Marketplace. And here we are. We're back at that same square right there. And I'll take advantage of that. And actually, I'm going to go ahead and create the application right now. So let me go ahead and create it. So you'll want to place the Azure app in a resource group. You can either select an existing one or simply do a create new. So I'm going to call it RG demo DevOps Shield. Click on OK. You can pick a location. These are fairly standard service, so you'll find them in almost any location. So for instance, maybe I'll put it in East US 2. You pick the OS for the plan. So Linux works very well. Otherwise, you can use Windows. So I'm going to stay with Linux, and then just choose a shirt size, small, medium, or large, basically according to the number of resources. Now, resources for all intents and purposes, is essentially the number of repos. You could look at it that way. It's actually a little bit more a little more nuanced than that, but think of it as the number of repos that you have. And if you have, 500 or less repos, then you'll want to take a small. Or if you have more than 500 but less than 5,000, go for the medium size. Otherwise, if you're looking at, thousands and thousands of repos, maybe even greater than 5,000 repos, you'll want to pick a large instance. So I'm okay with the medium, actually. It's always nice to have a fast instance. So let me go ahead and demo. So give it a name, right? So I don't know, demo DevOps Shield, call it what you want. Oh, and there's, obviously some validation. It doesn't want any dashes. So let me just remove those dashes. Okay, now it's happy. You can change the name of the managed resource group, but why? Unless you have specific naming conventions, just go ahead with what's recommended. And then enter your tags, and that's it. So, do what you need to do in terms of tags, in terms of what your organization expects of you. And then click on Create. Now, DevOps Shield will need access, or CAD for DevOps will need access to the subscription to be able to install it. And if you need a service request, we can help you with that. So you'll need to okay the co-admin access permission. It's standard in the Azure Marketplace, but go ahead and read that carefully. So I will agree to the terms and conditions above. And you could review. I've only placed one tag, make sure it's the right location and subscriptions and so on. Make sure basically that this information is correct right here. Looks good to me. So I am going ahead and create. And that's it. So that's all you need to do. It'll take most likely less than 5 minutes, a little over 4 minutes usually it takes to deploy. And so what I'm going to do, we started at 2:53. I'm going to pause the video right now, and then I'll see you once the deployment is done, and we'll come back to this screen. All right, so in the previous video, we basically went into the Azure Marketplace and installed the DevOps Shield application. And between 4 and 5 minutes later, you should get to this point where it says your deployment is complete, and you can for sure look at the deployment details. But you can also just jump right away to the resource. So I'm going to do that. I jumped right away to the resource. Notice it's in the location that we wanted, East US 2, in the resource group. So some of the key fields is the name of the app, the resource group where the app is located, and the subscription where it's located. Finally, to actually see what got deployed, you could look at the parameters. No worries, you won't be able to see any secure strings or anything, but you have information there, inputs and outputs. But to go see the resources, you simply click on the Manage Resource Group, and that'll contain a dozen or so resources. They should almost all be in the location that you selected, except maybe some global resources for monitoring. You should see a couple of workbooks. This is the most important service, the app service itself, so the website itself, where you're going to interact with the UI. And you're also going to see a log analytics workspace, a key vault, where of course only you have access to that key vault, and a database that will store all the data. Now the database, think of it as the shorter term storage, basically to get all the inventory of your resources and the compliance results and compliance scans and so on. Whereas the log analytics space itself will hold all the data long term, so you'll be able to see a time series and so on, with how your compliancy is evolving with time. Again, what we care about the most right now for this video is to actually set up and try the application. So you need to come to the app service itself, click on that, and notice Linux got deployed. That's what we asked for. The size got chosen based on the t-shirt size, and here is the actual link for the application. So I can click on this, and this takes me to the application. Now, don't worry, this is actually a good sign. So it's telling you that you've installed the application and so on. That's great, but you still need to configure an application registration. Now, you can do this by hand, follow the instructions on our, for example, on our GitHub. But the other thing that you can do is run a PowerShell script, and you'll have full access to the code, so you can verify and okay it with your security team. But you can run this command right here, which is going to download that script from the GitHub profile, the GitHub, this file right here. This is the script. So you can download that script and execute that locally on your machine. Okay, so I copied and pasted this command right here, which I'm about to run on the bottom. Let's open up a terminal, or more importantly, a PowerShell session, and go ahead and, as you can see, there's nothing in this folder right now. I'm just going to go ahead and paste the command that I copied either from the GitHub or from that configuration error screen. And notice all it's doing is it's grabbing that file from the GitHub, saving it as a PowerShell script, and executing it. Okay, so let me go ahead and do that. That's it. Okay, so there's 5 steps that we're going to do. It quickly jumped to the first step, which is the actual login. So you need to log in with someone. Let me just show you. Someone with application registration permissions, okay, that like they're able to create an actual application registration in your tenant. The other thing, you'll eventually be asked the installation information, and also the script will register your application. This is all going through your own rights. I mean, you need the right people with the right access to be able to do that. And then it's going to set a few settings, and then reboot the instance and make sure that everything is working again. That's basically what's going to happen. So we've logged in. Actually, no, we haven't logged in. Let's do that now. Okay, so I'm going to log in with the user, and this will then go to step 2. So I'm just gonna wait for that. So step 2, please provide the installation information. So we have, let's go back to our managed app. Oh, by the way, and if you have a hard time finding these managed apps, just search up here for managed applications. You'll see it there. This is the logo for it, a little cube with the hand under it. And you see, you'll get back to that screen I showed you initially in the beginning of the video. So we need the subscription. Hey, you could put the ID or the name. I have the name right here. Let me go ahead and copy and paste that right there. Right click. Let's get the resource group. where the managed app is. So not to be confused with the managed resource group. This is the resource group where the managed application is located. That was the one you put in the initial creation screen in the Azure Marketplace. So that's it. And finally, enter your DevOps Shield managed application name. That'll be whatever you chose it to be. I called it Demo DevOps Shield, so that's what I'm going to copy and paste right here. There's one more question. It's, are you using DevOps Shield for multi-tenant Azure DevOps? Choose no for a single tenant or yes. So if you want to monitor Azure DevOps instances in different tenants, like more than one tenant, if you will, or you're in a situation like me, I'm using a user, I want users in a given tenant to log in, but I'm monitoring Azure DevOps instances in another tenant, then both of these kind of scenarios would warrant a multi-tenant application registration. So I'm going to click yes in my case for that. It doesn't hurt for you to put yes. But if everything is happening in a single tenant, including the ADOs that you're, the Azure DevOps organizations that you're monitoring, then you could leave it. You can choose no and leave it for a single tenant. In my case, of course, I will choose yes. And that's it. So now I just need to confirm that this information is correct. And let me check. Let me see. This is the right subscription. It's the right resource group that contains this Demo DevOps Shield application. And in my case, I do want a multi-tenant application. So I'm going to click yes to confirm that the above information is correct. And that's it. You're done. So notice, let this run, but we just had a couple of things that we needed to do. We needed to install the app, one basic screen that we needed to do with tags that we ended up putting, and then run this post-installation script that you can get on the GitHub or from the configuration error screen that you saw. And that's it. That's going to create everything you need. So notice it created an application registration with 79B as the client ID. Here is the URL of the actual application. And it assigned the current user running this script as the DevOps Shield owner application role. I will show you that application registration just so that you know exactly what got created. And now it's just restarting the DevOps Shield application. So, we've basically injected some secrets, and you'll need to, in the key vault, and you'll need to restart the application, right? So that's what's happening. It takes about a minute and a half. Actually, since it's almost done, let me jump into the directory to show you that app registration that got created. So in my case, I should see this one, right? Sorry, it was this one that we just created. Remember that 79B? This is it. So nothing fancy because we chose multi-tenanted. This is the multiple organizations account type that got created. There's a secret that got generated and placed into the key vault. There's a few redirect URIs, basically that redirect to standard stuff here for OIDC, for consent and login, sign in, sign out, and so on. And a few important URLs that got placed. And also these app roles. This is important as well. There's two app roles, the owner and the member. So of course, the person, so myself in this case, that ran the script is an owner. And if you want to verify that, remember this application registration has an associated service principal. So in my case, it's this one. And here is where I will see, for example, in the users and groups, I will see that indeed Emmanuel got placed as a user with the role DevOps Shield owner. So it all looks good. To me, this is everything that got generated. So we have a managed resource group. And we saw what that looks like with these dozen or so services or Azure resources, and this application registration right here. And in this case, it's a multi-tenanted application registration. You can always go back to it this way right here. Okay, so that's that. So I am going to, one last thing. In the API permissions, this is where you're going to see, for example, that the application registration will need, and this is important, will need basically delegated permissions or user impersonation. Essentially, you want to be able to access the Azure DevOps or VSTS REST APIs on behalf of the logged in user. This is extremely important, and that's one of those things that that's part of these permissions, delegated permissions for the application registration. That's it. So I do want to show you the final screen just to confirm everything worked nicely, and it didn't take that long, by the way. It finished probably in about under 2 minutes. But it does show you, it confirms everything went well. It cleared did an AZ account clear, and you're now ready to basically log in to the DevOps Shield application. So I'm going to show you the initial screen, and then we're going to pause for the next video. So I clicked on the link, and notice I do have a consent required. I can even consent on behalf of the organization if I choose so. I can follow the links, the terms of services, so you can go ahead and open that, and that'll take you to the terms and conditions and so on. So feel free to verify this information. And finally, I won't consent on behalf of the organization. I don't need to do that just yet. Instead, I will accept to consent and actually see the login screen. And there you are. So you've installed DevOps Shield in a managed resource group, a subscription that you own, and it's your data. And if you want to double check the version, you'll see that on the bottom. So I'm going to pause this video right now, and next video will show you how to install, how to quickly get up and running in a few minutes and start your first scan to see your full inventory. All right. Let's get back to it. So this is the third and final sequence for this video on how to install DevOps Shield solution from the Azure Marketplace and get started for free. So in the first two, we basically installed the app from the Azure Marketplace and then ran the post-install script that you could find on GitHub to create the app registration. So all that was done, and what that gave us is the following application right here. So I haven't changed anything. And the version, like I said, is 1.0700. That's the one that we just installed. Now, when we click, we logged in, all right? And when we clicked, the first thing that you're going to see is basically no resources found. And, pretty much wherever you go, you're going to see this yellow sign right here, sort of trying to push you basically to start your configuration, right? So let's heed that big yellow sign. Let's click on Start Your Configuration Now. Let me go ahead and do that. So I can configure, remember we did this app registration, I could do an on behalf of. So in other words, with the user currently logged in, it has access to a bunch of Azure DevOps organizations, and I could run under that context, that user, if you will. Or I could generate a tenant token. We'll see both. But let me go ahead and run, do the setup, get started on behalf of user access token. It's probably going to be the most common scenario. Now, this is the first time that we'll need to consent for this. This is to have access to the Visual Studio VSTS. That's the old name for Azure DevOps REST APIs. Okay, so I'm going to consent. I can, of course, consent on behalf of the organization if needed. I don't want to do that. We have the same links for the terms of service and so on. I'm not going to bother clicking them this time, but I will accept. All right. So now that takes me to the quick setup, and I only have to fill these two fields here, basically. I need to specify the tenant ID, basically where the Azure DevOps organization is usually backed by a tenant and the tenant ID. So I need to specify that. Let me specify that here. And it's good to have the tenant name that's meaningful, usually the actual tenant name. So in my case, it's qsoftvision on Microsoft.com is the example I want to show today. And that's it. I just need to click on Start Setup Now. Now, because I need to log in, I'm going to need that. I need that consent, except right here. So I will do that and click on Accept. And I have to click the Start Setup Now once more. This is only done once, but let me go ahead and do that. And we're done. So it found the 20 organizations associated to that tenant, created a management group for each of these organizations, and loaded a bunch of policy initiatives and definitions. It's very similar to what you know about Azure policies. So what Azure policies are to Azure, these DevOps policies, if you will, or DevOps Shield policies are to Azure DevOps. And you can actually look at them. You can see the definitions here that were created, the policy definitions, the initiatives, and so on. So I'll let you on your own time look at some of these things. But they essentially all together globally account for some really baseline configuration of the Azure DevOps platform. You know, that would be secure and compliant. So these are really things that you should be following. You can also have custom policies and so on. That's we'll leave for another time. Okay, but the whole point is that we did set everything up. We could see our enterprise. There's one main enterprise. The tenant, there's just one for now that we use. Those 20 organizations that we found, they're all here. Nothing has been scanned yet in terms of for compliance. Okay, so we're still haven't triggered that yet, and we will. For the projects, we haven't found them yet because we basically didn't run a scan yet. Okay, so we only know, not a full inventory scan. We know the organizations. That's about it. So let me go ahead, and notice there's a bunch of zeros here, right? Nothing. So you can actually run on behalf of right here. Do a get started. Same kind of principle. It's going to run and do a scan on behalf of. I could certainly do that. Or the other thing I can do is actually even create a token. a PAT token. It's your choice. You could do either one. I like to generate a token in the beginning, especially when I want to see all the information right away. And you have read-only and full scope tokens. So you see right here, those, if you're just interested in these resources and so on, read-only tokens will be good. However, if you want to go to that org level, for example, detect new organizations or see organization policies and so on, you will need a full access token. So you can generate it at the tenant level. Here I only have one tenant. Or at the organization level. I am going to create a PAT token that expires in 15 days. That's the default, into the Key Vault. And a full access. That way I get the full McCoy. Let's get the whole scan going on here. So let me go ahead and generate and that's it. I've generated a token. I will be able to see it, and this will also have triggered a data resource scan. So it's actually going on for me automatically, which is great. And you can see it if you go back to the tokens. You see that's that token that just got generated. Now it got generated today. Of course, it will expire in 15 days, right? You could have changed that as well, right? But could just do it for a day, for example, if you wanted to. And you just wait for the scan to finish. Now, the scan, I mean, for a medium-sized one, it can go, it obviously depends on the number of resources or repos that you have. For my more complex org that is multi-tenanted, like I have 7 or 8 tenants and so on, my scans last almost 8 minutes. This one should be done in 2 tops 3 minutes. You can refresh, or every 30 seconds right here, it's going to be refreshing. And you could run any of these things on demand. Otherwise, they're scheduled. So you can click on the run now. It's going to run these tasks. But otherwise, they're scheduled. Every 8 hours or a few times a day, basically, depending on the actual service, actually. But this will be done shortly, the data resource scan, we're hoping. Just refresh that. Okay, 1 minute and 40 seconds, maybe a minute or so left. And I think while I'm waiting, there is also a library here that sort of defines a few standard things, like, for example, which extensions you'll trust, say the ones from Microsoft or Microsoft Dev Labs and DevOps Shield. So a few variables here that you could configure. You have your tokens as well. And there, we're actually done. Just me looking around the thing. So what happened? The data scan finished, and it scanned all 20 organizations right here. This is the total number, the total amount of resources that I have. It also then automatically triggered the policy evaluation, which ran pretty quickly, and then the policy compliance. Once the policy compliance is done, that's when we have the compliance scores. Okay, so let me first show you the inventory. The inventory you could find here in the Data Explorer. Notice it shows me all my orgs. So there were 20 or so orgs. The top, all the projects as well, and you could also look at the top projects. So you could view all by clicking these things right here. The top organizations is essentially by number of resources. So that shows me that. And notice you have counts for the teams. I mean, this is already pretty rich. You have the number of users, the teams, repositories, branches even, all the pipelines, service connections, and so on, agent pools, environments. And you could click on any one of those, for example, this organization, and see the full breakdown there. You could scan, you could filter, and so on. And if you click on any one of these, say like this agent pool right here, you get the full set of information right here, and even a JSON, sort of the raw data that you got from the API REST call right here. And I'll end. So you saw how quickly we're able to quickly get a full inventory. We also, of course, ran the compliance, which then gives you your compliance score. This again basically gives you what's compliant, sort of the green stuff, versus what the red stuff, the non-compliant stuff. So things that you need to fix. And you have a full list and breakdown right here. So you can, for example, disallow guest users. This is a critical one that you should fix at the organization level. And if you click on any one of these, it even tells you how to remediate, and gives you links in the Microsoft Docs documentation, for example, that explains why you should secure this stuff. Finally, I'll end here. I did say this is the freemium plan. So you're protected up to 10 protected resources. So basically 10 resources got selected for you automatically according to, top resources. You can change that, of course, by enrolling or disenrolling certain resources. And you can upgrade to a bigger plan to protect more resources. Of course, anything past freemium, you would start to pay. If I wanted to protect my whole inventory, which is 710, I would need to run the recommended plan to use is the gold plan, which does protect up to 2,000 resources. So this is it. I'll leave it to a future video to go a little bit more in details on some of these things that we went through. Thank you for listening to this video. I really hope that you try this and go to the Azure Marketplace and try it out and find out for yourself where you're at today for your DevSecOps, and figure out how to secure your DevOps and fix those misconfiguration issues today.